Alright, so I'm going to make a video on how to do a few things with the graphing calculator, in particular with standard deviation. Uh, what I've done though is I'm going to start from the beginning. I've wanted to enter in all the lists of the presidents, their heights in centimeters. So I went to stat, then I picked edit, and I entered them in. And as you can see, I did all of the presidents. So, well, 43 of the presidents. I haven't included the 44th president yet because I don't actually know his height. Um, so what I'm going to do now is I press stat, and all you do is, once you have that all entered, I'm going to go over to calc, and I'm going to choose 1 bar stats, and I press enter, and it's in my L1. If it wasn't in L1, let's say it was in L2, I'd press second and 2, because you can see right here this says L2, but it is in L1, so I'm going to go back and press second and 1. Oops, that's not true. Alright. Now I'm going to press enter, enter, enter. And now it says X bar is 179.74. That's their average height. That's sigma X. That means the sum of all their heights. That's the sum of their heights squared. This big S is the sample population. And so the sample standard deviation is 7.04. Sigma X is the standard deviation, which is 6.95. Now, as you may or may not know, that means from the mean, 34% of the presidents should be about, we'll say, about 7 centimeters over 179.7, and 34% of the presidents should be less than 6.95, 179.7 minus 6.95. There are 43 presidents. I'm going to go down, and what I do, it says the minimum height was 163, the lower quartile was 174, the median was 182, upper quartile was 185, and the max was 193. So I'm going to now press Y, second and Y equals, and I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to turn this on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and pick a box and whisker plot. And remember, this was in L1, so I'm going to be able to do that. Now, what's going to happen is, when I go to graph this, let's see, let's turn on, good, enter, enter, oops. All right, great. When I go to graph this, nothing comes up. So what I have to do is I have to go to window. Now, I know that they're all between 160 and 180. So my x values are between 160 and 180. Those are the heights, and I'm going to go by, we'll go by 5. My y values, I'm going to go between 0 and 10. And now when I graph it, oops, I'm still off. That's odd. I thought that should have been fine. Oh, that makes sense. I'm going to go between 160 and 200. And now I get a good view. If I press trace, it goes onto my median. If I go all the way over it, my minimum is 163. My lower quartile, or quartile 1, is 174. My median is 182. My quartile 3 is 185. And the max is 193. Now, a lot of people struggle with box and whisker, and I always wonder why. Here's the interesting thing. Here's the part that's important. Remember, this is 25%, this is 25%, this is 25%, and this is 25%. And quarter 3 minus quartile 1 is the interquartile range. But take a look at this. My median is 182, my upper quartile is 185, which means 25% of the presidents fall between 182 centimeters and 185 centimeters. Now, that might not mean much to you, but 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. So we're talking like less than 2 inches. 25% of the presidents were within 2 inches of each other, which is fairly significant because it says something about the way we view people and power. Or maybe it doesn't, but that's what I'm going to go with. Now, I'm going to go to second y equals again. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to keep it on. But now I'm going to go to here. And if I go to graph this, I get this bar graph. Now, I'm going to go back to window. Oops, I'm going to go back to window, and I'm going to make this into 15. You know what? Maybe I'll make this into 16. And I'll go by 2s. So my graph now is a little bit easier to see. I'm going to press trace, and it's not too good because it kind of blocks that. So I wonder if I can do... What happens if I do like -6 to... Alright, so if I do trace, I went to -6 to lift my graph up a little bit. It says 160, and then max is less than 165. So this is like 160, 164.99. There's one person, one president. 165 to 169.99. There's 2 presidents. 170 to 174.99. There's 8, and then 8. Look at this, 180 to 185, or 180 to 184.99. There's 13 presidents. So this is kind of cool because it does the histogram for you. Between 190 and 195, or 194.99, there's 2 presidents. So that's kind of neat too. And so my point is, you can use a graphing calculator. It gives you your box and whisker. It gives you your standard deviation. There is actually a way to graph standard deviation, which is kind of cool. And that's kind of all. You just have to know how to manipulate your calculator and use it properly. I hope this has been useful, and that's it. Good night.